How's it going, fellas? Today I've got an interesting but dark story to share with you guys. As you see from the title, it's about a former NBA player named Howard Porter. Porter is best known for being a basketball star at Villanova, where he led them to the 1971 NCAA championship game. They ended up losing to UCLA in that game, but Porter was still named the tournament's most outstanding player. Unfortunately, it was declared that his award and Villanova's entire 1971 season would be vacated because the NCAA found out that he signed a contract with an ABA team when he was still in college. That didn't really stop him though. He was still drafted to the NBA in 1971 to the Chicago Bulls. But he had a less than spectacular career, playing only 457 games in his career for 4 different teams and retiring at the early age of 29. The reason for his very early retirement was mainly due to injuries and his addiction to cocaine. After his NBA career was over, Porter's life would take a steep turn for the worse. Despite having a relatively normal life up until now, Porter started to become heavily involved in the business of drugs and prostitution after retirement. He went bankrupt, got arrested for the possession of drugs, and even spent 6 months in jail. Porter's life during the early 80s was awful. He used to be a millionaire who owned many houses across the country. But by 1981, he was sleeping on his mom's couch. Even though this all seems really bad, fortunately in 1989, over a decade after his NBA career was over, he received some treatment for his cocaine addiction in Minnesota. And by 1995, he was perfectly fine and started working as a probation officer in Ramsey County. Porter was getting his life back together, and his journey as a recovering cocaine addict was very inspirational. As a probation officer, he was well respected within the state, had a stable job, and it looked like his life completely turned around for the better. When looking back at this journey in a 2001 interview, he described it as getting picked up by the devil and riding with him for a while, but deep down he always knew God had a plan for him. And now everything was going very well. At least that's what it seemed like. But on May 18th, 2007, Howard Porter all of a sudden disappeared. Nobody knew where he went or what happened to him. Then one day later, on May 19, his bloody and bruised body was rolled up in a carpet and was discovered in an alley by some children who were just running around. The police found him and brought him to a hospital immediately. But then a week later, Porter died in the hospital because of the injuries he sustained on his beaten body. His death launched a full-scale investigation of northern Minneapolis, where his body was initially found. Originally, the police arrested a prostitute named Tanya Johnson, who they believed was involved in Porter's death. They thought that Tanya was part of a setup that led to his death, but she adamantly denied this and gave her own account of what happened to Porter. According to Tanya, Porter picked her up and was trying to trade cocaine and cash to her in exchange for sex. They both agreed to this trade, so the two of them returned to Tanya's apartment. And now this is where everything went down. According to her, 4 masked men broke into her apartment, threw her to the ground, and then went straight after Porter. They demanded some drugs and money from Porter, but Porter did not have any besides the ones that he already gave to Tanya. So then they beat him up very badly. There was blood everywhere, and when Porter was trying to run, Tanya heard 2 gunshots. The police quickly arrived to the scene after this and found blood everywhere in Tanya's apartment. I mentioned earlier that the police arrested Tanya, but after she told the story of what happened, the police had no evidence that she was directly involved in Porter's murder. They thought that it was just a robbery that led to a murder, and Tanya was unfortunately in the wrong place, so they let her go. The investigation continued for the next 3 months without any luck, as the police were trying to find clues about the masked men who came into the apartment and killed Porter. Obviously, it's important to find the murderer, but the bigger issue is why he killed Porter. Initially, the police thought it might be related to his job as a probation officer, but that didn't make any sense. There was definitely something bigger and more dangerous in play. Everyone thought Porter had already moved on from his old life of drugs and prostitution, but according to Tanya's account of what happened, it looks like he had a relapse at some point and started to become involved in this again. The investigation moved towards trying to find any connection between Porter and drug traffickers in the Minneapolis area, but to no avail. However, in September 2007, the police arrested and charged a man named Rashad Arthur Raleigh, who they believe was one of the men who killed Porter in the apartment. Raleigh was charged with second-degree murder, and he also had an extensive criminal history. They also found out that Raleigh and Tanya were friends. So they arrested Tanya again, and this time charged her for second-degree murder as well for being a part of this setup. They believe that their intent was to lure Porter into the apartment, kill him, take back the drugs and cash, then leave him there to die. But they did not realize Porter was a probation officer, so they got scared and took the extra step to get rid of his body. So they were both found guilty, and now they're spending the rest of their lives in prison. Then about 1 year later, in August 2008, the police caught another guy named Fred King, who they also suspected was involved in this murder, and they were correct. King pled guilty and he also got sent to prison. 2008 was the last time we've heard of any news about the Howard Porter case. The police are still trying to find other people involved, but at this point, the investigations have led to no further evidence. There are still some questions that remain unsolved. Why did Tanya, Raleigh, and the others want to kill Porter in the first place? They claim that it was because he stole some drugs, but the police found no evidence of Porter actually taking any of the drugs after an autopsy of his body. Maybe Porter just wanted to steal the drugs just so he can exchange it for sex with Tanya. Which means Tanya would be correct. But why should we believe her if she was directly involved in this entire setup to kill him in the first place? We also don't know if any one of those guys had any relationship with Porter. Maybe it was because Porter did something bad to them many years ago, back when he was still a cocaine addict in the 80s. But that also seems very unlikely since Raleigh was only 29 years old at the time of the murder, half the age of Porter, who was 58 when he died. It could also be a planned robbery, and coincidentally, Porter happened to be at the wrong place at the wrong time. And that's all, folks. Hope you guys enjoyed that story of Howard Porter. The details of this investigation were kinda hard to follow, but let me know what you think. Thanks for watching, and I hope you all have a nice day. I'll see you next time.